right, if you did not already, your notebook. We're going to finish off the eloquence notes.
Stress-free.
Wait, is that the you to let us
I would like to chapter 13.
I is subjective, so if it's a subject to be I, me's. Right. Correct. Yep.
Is that for Bath and Body Works?
All right. So eloquence notes. We're going to pick up where we left off. I think we got through all the schemes and tropes was like the last definition that we did. So we're going to pick up with the figurative language. Tuesday is when you have that eloquence quiz, and it's going to be matching. It's 10 terms. One side, definitions, examples on the other, just going to put them together. So there's 19 total options on there, but only 10 are going to show up, on the quiz itself. And so that's going to be taking place on Tuesday. Friday is that article analysis of next week. You're not giving it to me today. You're not giving it to me on Monday. I think we had a question about that. Friday of next week is when you're doing that, so a week from today. If you have any questions about articles or whatnot, let me know if you think it'll work or not. Basically, so long as your article has an argument that it's trying to get across, you're probably going to be okay. If you're looking at an article that simply is relaying information or facts, that one's probably not going to work. So editorials within a newspaper, most publications, magazines, online journals, periodicals, things like that are pretty good at being having some kind of opinion they're trying to get across. If all else fails, look at something on opposing viewpoints on the library or go to New York Times or Reader Debate. They have topics coming up all the time. So it certainly does not have to be anything that we have specifically looking at. Maybe there's an article about Twitter being a reliable online news source that you could look at where Anton gets all his information. So those would all be things that you certainly could take a look at. Any questions about any of that stuff? One other thing for you to start thinking about, and we'll be going over this probably more so Tuesday of next week. Your next debate, you are going to be going mano a mano, one-on-one. So you can start thinking about who you want to challenge in warfare when it comes to verbal speech. Generally, I let you pick who you want to go against as opposed to pulling names out of the hat. However, we can kind of think about that because with a class this large, sometimes it can get a little messy trying to figure out, who's going to go against who. You lining up like JT, taking it down, right? Oh, she's looking for the weak link. With us having 25 people within here, that does mean we would have one group where there would be 3. So that's something to also think about where if there are 3 of you that definitely want to do something, which is not going to be problematic because most issues that we take a look at, as we mentioned, there's not one side versus another, there's multiple options that would be out there. But topics, things like that, we're going to take a look at next week. It's going to involve mass media and social media, and we'll kind of get into the specifics of it. So, whether it be a Twitter or whatnot would be a possibility. Next speech is going to be more formal, but you would know who you're going against. So if there are people in here that you want to kind of start thinking about, we can begin to set those up. If it looks like it's going to become a total free-for-all where we can't figure it out, then we can just pull names from the hat and go, okay, Anton's going against Nancy and Emily is going against Joe or whatever the case. But I like to give you the option of being able to pick partners first. Sometimes that can get a little messy. She's ready. Why him? I like the smack talk starting early. Probably going to be easy.
Wait, the debate against me is going to be...
That's what she said. I don't know. I didn't say that. I was just reiterating.
There's some hands.
All those who think Emily would crush JT. Well, Nathan's hand went up. Okay, there we go. Oh, why did we go all the way to the beginning?
Do you like it?
Well, I don't know.
Anton, you want to listen to Smashing Pumpkins again?
Yeah.
I'm gonna check the account.
I don't know if it counts, but like.
All right. So yesterday left off at tropes. So again, if you're dealing with schemes, syntax going to be the arrangement of words. So all those forms of repetition would be considered schemes, the antidiploses, the antimetabole, and even the things like alliteration and whatnot. Tropes are going to be more so dealing now with figurative language or changing meaning of words. So the similes, metaphors, personification would all kind of fall under that category. Not a trope, but a really good video. Have you ever seen Thunder Snow? Oh, you are in for a treat. Uh-oh, we need sound. Can't have Thunder Snow without sound.
Yeah.
You will want to be a weatherman after this.
Meteorologist.
Yes.
It was like a 3-day spin that I was doing on This guy is
No, look how much snow there is. I mean, I know we get like.
I like action.
Let's try this again.
I like skiing.
I've never gone skiing.
I've
never gone skiing.
I snowboarded for 5 years and I've been skiing for 8.
Maybe the bathroom.
No. You need to see Thunder Snow.
Gosh.
Well, he's stretching out so quick.
Yes. Of course, if we can't. It'll come back. It'll come back.
I want to learn how to make one of these, but just. I don't know how to.
Come on, sound.
Is the sound up on your computer?
Yeah. Hold on. Well, even without the sound, you can tell he's excited. Yes, this is real.
Does he get hit?
Like what he was freezing, he just started like.
It still keeps going.
Does he get hit by it?
Is it playing off your legs?
No.
I hate when snow is.
Chris, should I call the chicken expert? What?
You have one of those voice styles in the wall?
Is someone gonna bring it?
Nobody's on.
We gotta see this.
I'll give you guys one.
Yeah,
You gotta look at that.
Oh well. We will find it later.
How long is he out there? He said.
A Thunder Snow.
I'm gonna show my mom.
We will come back. Have no fear.
This guy is this. I like this guy.
He's basically the motivational speaker that I want to show up because
Okay, then I talk this.
he would go over everything. All right, first one, metaphor. I bet you can already tell what the next one's going to be. I would think definition for this one shouldn't be too bad, but it's going to be implied comparison, generally a tenuous connection between two things, which of course we do not use the terms like or as. So could be something, rather than going it is hot, it would go the flames of hell have set us ablaze in August, or that player is aggressive, no, that player is an animal out there. So you're making that direct comparison, without using terms like or as. Metaphors, similes, which are going to be next. From yesterday, alliteration, anaphora. Those are probably ones, bless you, that you probably naturally use on your own when it comes to incorporating ideas into your speech. So for your next speech, I mentioned you're going to have to use a couple examples of each one. I would expect these would be ones that already might be in there that you don't even really give a second thought to because you are so used to certainly using them within the course of a lot of your arguments. A couple examples will be coming up, like 2 or 3, from speeches so that we can see common ideas that get used. You don't have to write them all down by any means. President Clinton's inaugural address, his initial one, the ceremony is held in the depth of winter, being January, but by the words we speak and the faces we show the world, we will force the spring. So a spring reborn in the world's oldest democracy that brings forth the vision and courage to reinvent America. And a lot of times, seasons, things like that will get used quite a bit because we also have Al Gore making reference to Oklahoma City bombing that took place, I think, 1995. At the dawn of spring last year, a single act of terror brought forth the long, cold winter in our hearts. People of Oklahoma City are mourning still. So just a couple metaphors where, again, they're used to emphasize the main argument, the point that you're trying to get across. You're not going to go in mid-speech, it's raining cats and dogs, and have that be your metaphor, because if it's not going to be tied to the main argument you're trying to do, then certainly it's not going to be all that useful for you. Mentioned, since we have metaphor, we have to have simile. This one's a pretty explicit comparison because you are using those words like or as to show what that relationship is going to be here. So similar to the examples that we had before, Dante might tell you it's hot as hell in here because he's in like the fourth circle. Best English project ever had as a student, 12th grade. We had to make torture devices that would show up in Dante's Inferno.
What did you make?
We did the guillotine with a lot of like Heinz ketchup. But people had like paper mache, and they were in the classroom then. So like there were spikes coming out of the wall. Our guillotine was in the corner. What else was there? Like they didn't actually have to be in the book. You could just make your own torture devices. The best part was open house was that week. So imagine coming in as a parent, spikes, guillotines.
Tell Al to do that. Probably would be better than TWA.
I don't know if you read Dante this year.
Pretty sure we do. We referenced it like a bunch of times.
I know apocalyptic literature reads it.
Maybe just
I don't know if
I think
add Lincoln's related.
Yeah, I think it's
yeah, maybe you do. Maybe you do.
But you remember when we said like but like we had the discussion and said
Hyperbole, exaggeration for effect. So the near and dear Holden Caulfield from The Catcher in the Rye, rather than simply going, I have a lot of gray hairs because I have gray hair, I really do. The one side of my head, the right side, is full of millions of gray hairs, is most likely going to be an exaggeration, probably just as a couple here and there. But exaggeration, hyperbole, where you're really trying to emphasize some kind of main idea. Now, you certainly cannot turn it into where you're doing lies, and we don't want you necessarily to exaggerate the truth, but you can certainly do an exaggeration for effect. And it also can be a way to incorporate, in some cases, humor and kind of cut down on the defenses a little bit of maybe the audience and create a little more of a connection with them. But hyperbole. Millions of them? Like where, like up top, or you get the sides a little bit. That's why you keep it short.
You're right, they just disappear.
Mm-hmm. Every Sunday.
What do you do with your hair or something?
Mm-hmm. My routine.
You should grow it out.
For Lexi and Jess classes, does it have to be a check or can it be down?
Where the heck is this coming from?
you can't give her your debit card.
Why? Like my debit card number? Why? Or my mom said that. I didn't
No.
Why?
It's like you just like take everything.
Maisie.
Listen.
Check.
You never put your card out there. You can show them the front.
Maisie, whatever you do in life, don't mail your debit card to anybody ever.
I want to get a mail. I just like give them some of my like mom's number.
Don't give it to
Yeah,
Anton.
if it's a debit card, you have to give
Or Chris.
Yeah, debit is credit and what?
No, they're two different things. If real life lesson here, let's say you go to a gas station or whatnot and you use a debit card. If Dom has installed a scanner on there to steal your numbers and he uses your debit card, that money is coming straight out of your bank account. You can't get it back necessarily, or it's harder. If it's going with credit, you can cancel statements and transactions for that. But if someone gets a hold of your debit card and they're able to use your PIN, the chance of you getting that money back is much less than what would happen with credit. Because credit, the money's not gone out of your account, but debit, it's coming right out of your checking account right away. So if you have the option, probably better off going credit. Boy, we've covered everything. We've gone from like tie knots today to what direction are people going to go for homecoming to debit, credit, and analogies. All right, analogies, and I'll explain difference as to how it would work with simile and metaphor. Analogy is basically going to be an extended metaphor along simile where you are making this comparison much more tangible and relatable to your audience. If you are doing like a one-time comparison, that's going to be the simile or the metaphor. But if you, within the context of like a speech or an essay, say you devote like a paragraph to this comparison, to this idea, now you're going into the analogy category. So if it's something you keep coming back to, analogy. If it is a one-time comparison, that's where it would be the simile or the metaphor that would be taking place. Generally, I would say people probably do more analogies because you're trying to come up with a comparison so that people better understand the topic, are able to relate to it, so you keep going back to that comparison multiple times as opposed to just a one-time deal. Anybody recall Billy Madison? Billy Madison goes to make an analogy when he compares capitalism to the little puppy, I believe, during the quiz show portion. And then it does not work at all. That would be his attempt. Should have used that as the example. Did not have one. Bono from U2, wishing for an end to AIDS and extreme poverty in Africa is like wishing that gravity didn't make things so heavy. We can wish it, but what can we really do about it? Favorite Bono story is I think it's a concert in Australia where he's doing the snapping. Every time I snap my fingers, a child in Africa dies from starvation. So Ethan yells to him, "Stop snapping your fingers then." Anton's still thinking about that one.
No, I thought it was. That's like sad.
It is. Also, analogy here with Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson. A little guilty about winning a award. I think it was a People's Choice Award because it's not that hard of a thing to do. When you work with someone like Owen Wilson, I kind of feel like a jockey on the back of a great horse like Secretariat. My job is to just hold on. So similes, metaphors tend to be more, again, of a one-time isolated comparison. Analogies are going to be a little bit more extended metaphor, long simile, because you're going to be going back to that comparison multiple times to make reasoning a little bit more understanding. Personalization. This one is not hard to do, but people assume they are sometimes using personalization when they are not. From Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech with "I Have a Dream," this is coming from that same one. I have a dream, obviously, that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of the character. The words that are highlighted are I and my. What are you doing? You are personalizing the speech. You're bringing yourself into it. People, therefore, will sometimes be under the incorrect assumption that just by using the word I, me, or my, you are using personalization, and that is not the case. If this person were to go, I think that credit cards are easier to use than debit cards, you have not personalized the topic. What you have to do is bring in yourself, your family, people you know, into it. So by him bringing in his 4 little children in context of the argument, he is personalizing it. But just by going, I think, I feel, I believe, that in itself is not going to be personalization. So this is one that a lot of times people can certainly incorporate within a speech. If you're going with like a personal anecdote where you're bringing yourself into it, but you can't point to the pronoun I and go, therefore I have personalized the speech, because the word I, me, my, we does not necessarily do it on its own. You have to bring in a connection between you, your family, those around you, and the topic itself. So you got to take that step just a little bit further. Allusions. This could be direct, this also could be indirect, but reference to previous work, historical event, or person. So, President Clinton, Thomas Jefferson believed that to preserve the very foundations of our nation, we would need dramatic change from time to time. So by him mentioning Thomas Jefferson, that allusion is very direct. If a person were to make reference to, say, the great emancipator, the president that he'd be referencing would be Abraham Lincoln. That's not quite as direct because you haven't said the name, but people still know who you are referencing. It can be a person, could be a place, could be some kind of event, but it has to be something that is well known. If you were ending a speech, therefore we promise the ideas of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Since you're quoting from the Declaration of Independence, you'd be making that allusion to the Declaration of Independence as well. What do you want?
I want William.
Of who?
Thomas Jefferson.
Why?
I already have a picture of him.
Do you collect pictures of?
I love presidents. Not the new ones. Yeah. And Ben Franklin. I know he's not president, but
He should have been.
he's the main one. I think he's better than George.
Should you have life-size cardboard cutouts of George Washington in your room, or?
I found one in a strip, but I didn't get it because George Washington, I think he's a little not overrated. I think this is for a different time. October. We did
I see a Sparta debate. George Washington is overrated.
I agree.
Saturday night.
He was not.
Homecoming.
I just
Say he was perfect.
And then everyone was telling me Ben Franklin was a womanizer.
Wasn't he a
Excuse me, I still would have chased after him too.
He's actually apparently the richest president ever president in the U.S.
What, Washington?
Yeah, his parents
Thomas
Yeah.
standards.
I believe that. I believe that.
Wait, Ben Franklin?
Ben Franklin.
All right, two more. Two more. Imagery or sensory words.
Or was that Thomas Edison? No.
Edison did the lights.
Edison did the light.
The clouds invented
They lived like 150 years.
imagery. Throw sensory words in here as well for the simple fact when people, when you think of imagery, I think folks generally go image, something that you see. Imagery by definition are going to be words that appeal to the senses. So sensory words might be something to keep in mind because it does not have to be sight. It could be any of the five senses, whether it be sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. So any terms, any words that are going to help create an image or create some kind of sensory reaction using any of those are certainly still going to be viable. And a lot of times using imagery beyond just the pictures can be extremely effective because people aren't used to folks evoking that kind of reaction where you are dealing with what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, what you feel, besides simply what you see. So that certainly would be something to keep in mind. And again, it's not just the fact that you're going to use words that cause people to see things or hear things, but you are trying to create some kind of image, whether it be visual or any of the other senses, that tie in directly to the point you are trying to extend. That's the thing with any of the examples of eloquence. For them to work, it has to be tied into that argument that you are trying to do. The last one, which I don't think I have on here as a slide, would be oxymoron. So oxymoron, oxymoron. Oxymoron is going to be a little bit different than antithesis because you have only two words where you have opposite meaning put together to create an effect. So only two words placed together, opposite contradictory meanings creating an effect. So the cliche one that gets overused certainly is going to be jumbo, shrimp, but certainly there will be other ones out there that you could use.
I wrote them all down.
Hot chili was my favorite.
Original copy.
Freezer burn, original copy.
What else did you say?
plastic glasses.
Exact estimate.
My favorite is Hell's Angels. Yeah, exact opposite. I mean, that's a fighter game.
Estimate.
Or exact estimate. I say happy
You said
marriage,
actually.
but then people get uncomfortable when I
Oh.
mention them, so I usually don't use happily married.
You're not happily married.
I'm very happily married.
What?
What else? Microsoft Works.
You're not good at Chase Walker.
Yeah.
Chase Walker.
Like that one.
That's smart. I
I don't think fork don't work.
Yeah, that does not work.
Probably right.
I still like freezer bread. I like that one. Mrs. Kane always goes, I need to thaw the chicken. I'm like, you gonna put it back in the freezer?
Defrost's not a word.
Wait, did you hear about the okay?
She takes thaw and defrost and puts them together and makes thaw, which means you're going to freeze it again.
But like that paradox, it's like you ask Pinocchio, it's like, will your nose grow?